In the software support system, the people are represented by two separate but equally important groups: the developers who write the code and the engineers who support the people who use it. These are their stories. Welcome to devMode.fm, a podcast dedicated to the tools, techniques, and technologies used in modern web development. I'm Andrew Welch from NY Studio 107.
I'm Patrick Harrington from Mildly Geeky in Boston.
And today we have on Ben Croker from Put Your Lights On.
Hello there.
And we also have on Ali Bond from Pixel Tonic. How you doing, Ali?
I'm good, thank you. Hi.
And the reason we have you on, Ali, is we wanted to talk to you about support, because this is something we've been talking about for a long time, is that as plugin developers, we feel that we're kind of in the support business, but then also as clients of Pixel Tonic, when we're building websites, we kind of lean on the craft support a good bit. So, Ali, if you were out in Saratoga Springs, New York at Lollapalooza, and you were crowd surfing during a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert, and you landed up on stage, and Anthony Kiedis said to you, "Hey, Ali, how did you end up doing support?" What would you tell him?
I run towards the guitar player and just start a solo, I guess.
Wait, Andrew, is this one of your real stories, or are you just generating new stories now?
You will never know. Anyway, tell us, Ali. Come on. Anthony is an impatient man. He wants to hear what's going on. The crowd's eagerly awaiting. What's your story? How'd you end up in support?
I ended up in support after a strange life. I'm French, as you can hear, I guess. And I grew up in a tiny little village here. I wasn't a very good student, let's say it that way. And when I had to start working, unfortunately, I couldn't get a job because I had no qualification whatsoever. Nothing was available to me. So I ended up on building sites, in factories. I'd studied a bit of engineering, so I spent some time in factories, and it just wasn't something that I wanted to do. And I wanted to do, I don't know, to find, something more stimulating, more interesting. And my sister had moved to the UK probably 7 years before I did. And one day we were talking and she said, I just got back home and I've got a laptop and I plug that on the phone and I can ask questions on the phone line, and I can ask questions on search engines. And I thought I really want to try that. And I moved to the UK to go and see what computers were like. And she'd also said that...
Wait, hold on. Wait. You had to move to the UK to see what computers were like? They had them in France, right? Didn't they?
I'm rewinding a little.
Okay.
She, in the same breath, she said, if you want to change career, the UK is probably the place, because if you show that you want to do something, people will give you a chance with or without the qualification. So I decided to go there, and I arrived. I saw the computer first thing, and decided just to give it a shot, basically. So I gave myself a couple of months or something to see if I could find a job, and I couldn't speak English when I arrived, so that was a bit tricky to interview. And there was one American company based in the town I was in, who had a French department, a French branch as such. So I went to see them. The manager was French himself, like bilingual. And I interviewed with him, explained I just wanted to do something, anything. And they gave me a job as a cleaner. So I started as a cleaner. And after a few months within the same company, and after having learned a little bit of English, they gave me a position as an accountant. So from cleaner, I became an accountant.
I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, really.
Yeah, it is the same thing. Definitely. It was credit control as well, so it's very close to cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
And then the company went bust, unfortunately, so I ended up unemployed.
Cleaners doing their accounting, I mean, what do you expect?
Sick
very
needle.
Very good.
Wow.
So then I had to find something else to do. And
10,000 mop heads. Why do we need 10,000 mop heads? Sorry, Ali. Go ahead.
No, that's cool. I did a bit of temping, and I ended up at the Royal Mail, so the post office, for those who are not from the UK, and doing customer service of some kind or something. And already there, I was still playing at home with computers in the evening, so I'd spent some time in Excel and stuff, and I started writing reporting for them in VB. So this is very old Excel. I can't remember which version, but old stuff. But still still as a temp, basically. And then they advertised a few positions, one of which I was in, so a customer service position, to change the job from a temp job to a permanent position. So I applied for the job, went to the interview, and they asked me my strength and why I think I'd be a good person for the position. And so I started saying, well, I made all those reports, and, I can do this in Excel and I can write that. And I didn't get the job. They said to me, basically, we're looking for customer service representative, not a developer. So that didn't work out for me, and I lost that job. And then as another temp job, I ended up in a college, adult community college, doing some data entry. It was exam time, and they needed to just put all the results basically in their database system, whatever they had. So I did some data entry for a while there and got friendly with the teachers and the director for of the college and all those people. And every now and then they'd have problems in classrooms, and they had an IT guy in place in the college. And I'm not pointing at anybody, but you know what IT people can be like. So the teachers, when they were having problems, they started coming to see me instead of seeing this guy, because I was friendly or because I don't know. And it was often, the printer's not working, or I can't connect to the drive. So I used to help teachers. And one day the principal of the college came to see me and said that he kept on getting this great feedback about me and about the way I had with pupils, and, how I could solve problem with a smile and make everybody feel at ease. And he said to me, I think you should become a teacher.
Isn't that funny, Ollie? That there was an IT person on staff that presumably was very knowledgeable, but people avoided them because of their bedside manner or their interactions with people or whatever you want to call it. And they started gravitating towards you because you were treating them like a human, I presume. I mean, that definitely says something in terms of how important interpersonal skills are, regardless of how smart you are or how much you know about a particular thing. If people don't feel like dealing with you, they're just going to avoid you if you're a jerk.
For sure. I think communication is key. And I feel there is a difference. Again, that doesn't apply to everybody, but there is a difference between when you're self-taught on something and when you've been given it via a school or via a course or whatever. I think there's an openness to being self-taught and a way to communicate things that's more human, that what you could learn in a classroom. I wasn't technical, basically. That was the point in this context as such. When it wasn't working, I was just making a joke of it. And I wasn't saying, oh, this is because there's not enough RAM, or because the printer can't connect to TCP. I don't know, some technical thing. I was just being human about it.
Right.
So at that point, my first reaction to this offer was just, well, I don't have qualification to do this position. And I'm not very great in a classroom environment. I like to learn at my own pace, and being, just self-taught, basically. I've learned everything I know this way. And I struggled a little bit, I guess, with school and with authorities somewhere. So what they offered to me was to just try the exams without doing the courses. So he said to me, you would need to have a qualification in English, one in maths, and one in teaching as such. So I did 2 A levels in English and maths, and one teaching qualification, which is City and Guilds 7407, I think it was, or I can't remember the thing. But anyway, they offered to me to just try and do the exam with what I knew. And if I passed, well, great. If I didn't, then I could do the course if I wanted to. And I took those 3 exams and I passed them all, believe it or not. So I ended up with an A level in both maths and English and a teacher's qualification.
That was easy.
And and I became a teacher within this college. So I taught English at basic skills, it was called.
So either you were really good or their standards were really low, right?
Well, English, again, I'd learned it when I arrived there, basically, listen to people. And French, if any of you can speak French is a very complicated language.
Why don't you guys, why do you hate consonants so much? Why won't you pronounce them? What's going on?
Well, don't ask me, ask the French. No, but French is a difficult language, and the way you're taught at school is very different. I saw this when I was in the UK, and I had friends who had children, and they were showing me the English coursework and this sort of stuff. In France, you learn grammar for all your life, but I mean, you learn how to build sentences. You're not just given sentences to repeat. And in English, when I was seeing the coursework from those kids, I was thinking, well, they're just telling you, if you need to ask somebody how they are, you say, how are you? But why in this order? What is how? What is are? And English just came quite naturally because of this, because I understood language structure and how to build sentences. As soon as I got it in English, I was just missing a few words or, a few verbs or whatever. But I got it quite quickly, and the A level in English is not very complicated.
And I bet you, Ollie, you're right. There are lots of people in the United States, and I would assume in other English-speaking countries, that if you ask them in the sentence, how are you, what exactly is the word how, like they probably wouldn't be able to tell you. I mean, they probably would have no idea, in terms of exactly what. But here's what I'm concerned about, though. You were in the United Kingdom, and you're a teacher there, and then it sounds like something traumatic happened because you ended up back in some remote village in France doing support stuff. So how did we, let's fast forward. How did we get there? What happened?
That was a choice, actually. From being a teacher, I started using Photoshop to make posters for my courses. And I thought, I'd love to be a designer. So I became a designer. And being a designer, I started thinking, well, I could make a website now. And I started looking at code. And I thought, well, I love code. I'd love to be a programmer. So I got a job as a programmer, and then it escalated and I ended up with an agency. I had my own agency in the UK. And after a few years of doing that, I traveled quite a lot. And I had a few big clients, and I just decided to stop working in computers. At some point, it just wasn't clicking with me anymore. The direction things were going, social media was getting big, these sort of stuff. And clients would come for a website and say, oh, can you do social media at the same time? I don't know if you see what I mean, but it wasn't my thing. I like design and I like coding, but SEO or social presence or these sort of things were just not for me. I was not interested. And deep down...
It's not for many people, in fairness.
Exactly. And deep down, I don't truly believe in it. And I'm sure you know where I'm coming from with that.
Oh, yeah.
All these SEO experts selling you packages. So because I wasn't willing to do it as part of the job we would deliver as an agency, we would have to work in partnership with SEO consultant. And
oh, God. It's the worst. It's the worst because there are people that do legit SEO work, especially SEM.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the key, isn't it? I mean, SEO, you build a website, you optimize it for search engine. Of course you do. But without SEM, it's nothing.
Right. But that's the thing, man, is the industry is just riddled with snake oil salesmen. I mean, it just is. It's kind of like, I always liken it to the diet and exercise industry, where, of course, there are legitimate dietitians and, of course, there are legitimate trainers. But it's also just a cesspool of people selling you diet pills and quick fixes and crap like that. And the SEO world is almost exactly the same thing. You know what I mean?
So if I could move us along, I mean, the crowd's out there, they're chanting for Californication. They're getting, they're wondering, how did you get to Pixel and Tonic?
So I stopped the agency and I decided to leave the UK and go back to the countryside to change life, basically, to change
Become
career.
a beet farmer. You want to be a beet farmer, right?
My first idea was being a gardener.
Or you could grow your own cheese, right? You guys grow cheese somewhere, don't you?
We grow anything you want.
Because I always pictured, like, in the French countryside, there's the baguette tree, and you just walk up to it and you twist a baguette off and you start eating it, right? That's where it grows, right?
It's not a baguette tree, it's called a bakery.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
boulangerie.
That's it. I decided to go back to the village I came from, basically, originally, just to be near the forest. I had a bit of time in front of me, so I just wanted, to have a think as such and do something more natural, closer to people, I guess, and less computer. Gardener was an idea of mine to start with, but of course that didn't really work out. And then I thought I would like to help people. I would like to do something like psychology or hypnotherapy or something, to actually help others. And again, being back in this country where you need the qualification to be able to actually practice, the job you want, that would never have happened, basically. I couldn't have gone back to school to study psychology in full and stuff. So I thought, well, I've got something in my hand, which is computers, and I want to help people. What could I do? And I spent some time on Stack Exchange just to, to spend time literally helping people. And then I thought, well, this could potentially be a job. And not long after, there was a job from Pixel Tonic looking for a support engineer. So I thought, well, here's the job. I know Craft. My agency was built on Craft and Expression Engine before that.
Okay, so you had heard of Pixel Tonic, right? I was going to ask you, I was going to ask you, how did you even see this job listing? But your agency was already using Expression Engine and then Craft. So okay.
I knew, not personally, but I knew of Brandon from the Expression Engine time, so with Player and Matrix. And I'd seen him speak in Leiden, in Holland, one of the Expression Engine conference. And he announced Pixel and Tonic at that conference because he was making the add-ons for free, and he had a job on the side, but support was taking all his time. So he said, well, I'm going to need to sell my plugins now, and I'm going to stop my job, open a company, and it's going to be Pixel and Tonic. So already at that time, that resonated with me.
And you also had the connection where, because before Brandon ended up doing any of this computer stuff, he was a lumberjack in the Oregon wilderness felling trees. So he kind of had a connection to the land like you did with farming and decided to kind of get back into it. So it sounds like you were kind of two peas in a pod in a way.
That's it. No, but Stack Exchange, I wanted to go back on computers because I'd not done anything for 2.5 years nearly when I came back to France. And I thought, well, you need to start somewhere. And Stack Exchange has always been a pleasant place. And I thought, well, just,
really?
do a few hours.
Whoa. Hold on.
I like it. I like problem solving. That's the thing. We're getting to the point of it, because
I like problem solving too. But saying that Stack Exchange has always been a pleasant place,
I always had a nice time. I mean, I didn't contribute that much or whatever, but I always like to see issues and being able to help people do it.
It's like some cities, Ollie. It's like certain cities. It depends on where you go. You know what I mean?
There's that. But, it's a procrastination thing. People go on Stack Exchange when they don't want to do their work.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to a friend a few days ago, Dave, who spends time on Stack Exchange himself. And he said to me, that's when I don't want to do my work. Right. He goes on, so there is something to it. And I remember seeing a presentation from a girl called Jessica Heisch, I think. She works in typography. She's quite well known online. And she created that term, procrasti-working. What you do when you're supposed to be working, but you're not, is probably what you should do as a job. Which also really resonated with me.
I don't know, but the people won't pay me to sleep, though. That's the problem,
And that's the basic answer. Many people said, well, I love to play video games, so how can I monetize that? But,
Well, there you could even make a money being a professional video gamer. But like, for instance, Patrick just likes to watch movies. No one's going to pay him to do that, right?
Yeah, just procrastination.
Yeah, but you could make, for example, a film critique site, spend your time and try and monetize that. I know there's competition, but it's an example just of like the way of thinking about it. Of course, if everybody could choose, they would probably want to be in bed all day or do nothing, but you have to. So you might as well make it enjoyable, I guess.
And no one's going to pay Ben to, glide through the Alps, right? Ben, you can't you can't put on like a NASCAR style, logo stuff and be sponsored and do that, can you?
I don't know. I could make a business model out of that somehow. I could delivery man by air. Right?
Would you have like wedding announcements attached to your feet, and you string them along behind you as you soared around or something?
Exactly, yeah. With the colored smoke coming out the back. Yeah.
That would actually be hilarious. I would pay to see that. And anyway, let's get back to what we're talking about here with Ollie. So you ended up applying for the job. You work at Pixel and Tonic.
Yeah.
What does it look like in your day? Like when you sit down, I would imagine you have some kind of a ticketing system and you start going through it. But how do you view this when you sit down to approach a problem that someone has sent you? What are you thinking, and what does the procedure look like? Because we're on our end. We're trying to build something, and we're using your being Pixel and Tonic. We're using your tool to build this thing, and we're running into a problem. And we're trying to build something using this thing that you have built. So then we contact you for support, and how does it go from there?
Well, we read the message and do our best. Basically, that's it. Short answer. No, I'm kidding. So, well, that's the thing with craft itself. It's not just craft. You've got many layers to it. Craft is built on a framework itself, and the framework is in a particular language. So tickets coming in can be quite varied. What the issue is. It could be Composer. It could be PHP. It could be Yi. It could be anything. So the first thing when I get a ticket, I guess, is understand what the problem is and gauge how the person on the other side is feeling, because that's important to me, at least. How you're gonna, what tone you can use. Is it time for a joke or not? You know what I mean? And gauge the urgency. Any problem is regardless of the intensity of the problem, a problem is a problem, and nobody lives well with a problem on their mind. So I'm always conscious that on the other side, there's somebody in need of help. It is computer help. It's not, life-saving help or anything, but sometimes it can be very pressing it can be very stressful for people to be stuck on something.
Right, because they have a client that is pressing on them and saying, hey, why isn't this thing working? You know what I mean? So they, in some senses, they're kind of caught in the middle, right?
That's it. There is some of that. And the responsibility falls back on us because, well, they're using our product. So there you go.
Now, in terms of I can tell you from my experience I've done support in a variety of areas, but a lot of times what happens is, or the biggest problem that I have is not people being jerks, because for the most part, people are pretty reasonable. I mean, occasionally you'll get jerks in there or whatever, but for the vast majority of people are not, because they're reaching out for help. The biggest problem I have is I just don't have enough information. People will say, this doesn't work. And I'll be like, okay. I'd love to help you, but I need a whole lot more information. Do you run into that at all? And how do you counter that?
All the time. So you can reach support via either the website or just send a plain email as such. So the website tries to advise a little bit and say, give us details or be precise about the issue. But some people just throw an email saying, doesn't work. And that's it, basically. Or just, an error message with nothing. It's just in the subject or whatever. So unfortunately, the first ticket back is often questions, unfortunately. And that's something, if somebody has a solution to solve this, like we have on GitHub, for example, you can have a template for issues. So you ask people to describe how to replicate, what version they're on and stuff. Basic information as such, If we could make sure that every email coming in had this information, it would save one ticket at least. But that's the first step, I guess, is gathering information and understand.
You know what I've seen? I've seen a flowchart where they make people go through these in a wizard style. Did you try this? Yes or no. Did you include the log? Yes or no. And you don't even get to submit the ticket until you have clicked all through these things. And on the one hand, I was like, oh, that seems like a really good idea. But then on the other hand, as being someone that had to go through that, I was just severely annoyed. I'm just like, do I really? It's like calling the cable company and they're like, did you try turning it off and back on again? You're like, yes. Yes.
Well, one of the challenges, Ollie, I assume, is that you have so many different channels of support, right? So people can post GitHub issues, they can send emails, they can use the support form on craftcms.com, they can send you a tweet. So how do you funnel all of this, do you funnel all of this into one kind of ticketing system so that you can tackle all of the support issues and manage them and collect the information that you need?
Yeah, so we use Zendesk, and I'm lucky enough to know I have to deal with everything, of course. There is Brad and Brandon and everybody. I mean, everybody does support at Pixel and Tonic. It's not just me. My job title is that, but everybody does it. I don't do much in terms of, I'm not on social media myself. I don't really like the format. I find it difficult.
Bless you.
So, for example, Discord is a very difficult format for me. I'm starting to, I try, I have phases, basically. I'd go on it for a week and then I'd stop for 6 months because I find it quite noisy. I can understand some people can cope with it, but I have tickets that sometimes I need to concentrate on and I can't just have things pinging at me all day long. So I try to focus.
Discord is more like New York City than it is a quiet village in northern France.
Definitely. And it's a lot of context switching because of course you don't get tickets one by one. You work on multiple tickets at once. So, from switching from tickets to tickets and remember where you are at, having different installs running at the same time and not getting lost basically and not waste time on things, my time and people on the other side. The goal is to solve. So, the quicker you get there, the better basically.
So do you have a strategy where you pull things in to Zendesk and take care of them there, but then respond to people through the channels that they contacted you?
Well, I know GitHub has an integration that integrates with Zendesk.
We don't have GitHub in Zendesk. No, we've got social media on Zendesk. Brad, Brandon, Andres, in terms of craft, of course. No, I'm not talking about commerce there. But they look after GitHub. They engineer. They know the product differently than I do. I need to know a little about everything. Brandon, of course, knows everything about everything. And the others just, if it's something project config, Andres is going to jump on it, for example, because he built the thing, so he knows it. And GitHub are more high-level issues as such. If somebody posts something on GitHub, they're a developer. They've got a GitHub account. So, they know already a little bit more than some of the ticket that we can get in Zendesk. So emails, because we get end users sometimes. So people bypass the agencies and just write in saying, I need to add a header on my website. And I always do it in a nice way, but I say, you can do anything with craft. We didn't build your site and we don't have access to it. So maybe try and contact the person who built it. Right. That'd be a more logical point of call for this.
Well, and in fairness,
and also in fairness, they may be used to a system where they actually could do that in the past. Maybe they had a Wix site or something like that.
There is some of that.
Where they could do that. But I want to ask Ben, because Ben Croker, you are someone that when we had you on here to talk about Sprig, I asked you what the cost of Sprig was, right? And you said, "What do you mean it's free?" I'm like, no. What's the cost of it in terms of support? And does any of this resonate with you? Is this something that you're exploring in terms of
the human cost?
Support is becoming more of an issue?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to distinguish between free open source software and a commercial product for which software is also expected and provided. But yes, it's a challenge. It's always been a challenge and always probably will be a challenge. That's why I'm curious in Ollie's experience of how they gather the information they need, what techniques they use, because really very often the better the question is asked, the easier it is to help the person. And often requests will come in like, "I'm getting a white screen, help," right? So that whole process of getting the information out of the people,
right,
so that I can help them is a very tedious and often time-consuming process.
Yeah, so you agree with me that one of the biggest problems is just getting the information that you need to be able to help them.
Absolutely. And one of the challenges that I'm facing, as well as everybody else here, I assume, is that people can contact me through various channels. So people will often ping me on Discord and just ask me questions out of the blue. And sometimes it'll be midnight over here, right? Because I'm a few hours ahead of the US. So it's important for me, and this takes a bit of self-discipline, to tell people or to educate people on how to, not necessarily how to ask for support, but where to ask for support. And as gently as possible, I also try to help people to ask better questions, because then they're just going to end up getting better support from me.
It's difficult because when people write in with a problem, it goes back to what we were saying, they are not their normal self. As such, they are in a position of panic or fear, or they are under pressure, so they don't think clearly anymore. And I get what you say about educating, but I can tell you the repetition. I'm not pointing at anybody or anything, but even people who are, let's call them frequent flyers, they write in. You say, "Oh, can you send me that?" And you've done it 15 times, and they still write in without sending anything.
Yeah, and that's the thing. One of the things that I always try to do is I send them a link where here's where the documentation tells you how to do this thing that I just told you, with the idea being maybe they'll help themselves in the future. And there's probably a percentage of people that will do that, but there also is a percentage of people that what they will have learned from the support is not that they should go to the documentation, but that you will answer them. You know what I mean? So it's almost like baby birds with their mouths open. You know what I mean? Like, well, what I learned is that Ollie gives me the answer to this thing, so I'm just going to ask Ollie. You know what I mean?
And you're completely right. I see different behaviors from people when Brad, for example, answer and when I answer. I see people react differently, and I think I've shot myself in the foot in that sense a little bit, because I am a helper by nature. I chose this job because that's what I want to do. I actually want to help. And I think some people can feel it, and it can become unhelpful in a sense, because they just have to, the email easy, let's say. They just fire, or I'm stuck, I'm going to write.
Well, the other part of it is Brad always adds to the end of his support emails, "P.S. Don't forget we're all going to die really soon anyway." So the fact that he includes that probably scares people off, to one extent or another. But Ben, I want to get back to you just a little bit on the support stuff, because I know that, obviously there's support for your paid plugins, there's support for Sprig, but what do you think a good model is for making this economically viable for you to be able to support both the free stuff and the pay stuff? Because, it all costs time in the end. So you got to figure out something to do. And I'm curious if any of the directions that Pixel Tonic has taken with their paid support, if that is something that you've looked into or has interested you, or if there's anything you want to ask Ollie about that.
Yeah. Well, maybe before I talk about kind of business model, one of the strategies that I have begun employing or have been doing this for a very long time is, I mean, what you were kind of alluding to, Andrew, is that as questions come in, I would check the documentation and check if I'd missed something or if I had not explained something as well as I could have, and possibly then rework that or write a kind of frequently asked questions or common issues or a knowledge base or a guide, that kind of thing that I can point people to. Because if I know that exists, then support requests that come in, I can just point them there and then help the people help themselves. The other strategy, of course, is building what I think of building support into the plugins that I develop. And what I mean by that is just make it easier for people to understand what's expected of them within the plugin. So anything from little instructions underneath fields, especially in plugin settings where things are not clear. And I very often use that info tooltip. So there'll be instruction text and then an info tooltip, which will go into a little bit more detail. And then if they want even more detail, there's a link to the specific place in the documentation. And it's kind of like stepping them through this process and trying to kind of catch them before they decide to shoot an email off to me saying help, right? It's kind of like walking through them this process.
Yeah, you're trying to move where the support is done, essentially.
Exactly, yeah. And for something like Sprig, which is free open source and kind of different from a traditional plugin because it's kind of a way of writing your Twig templates and working with Twig templates, I'm putting I think it would probably be fair to say more work into creating learning resources than writing the plugin itself and doing the development. But hopefully it's paying off because the hope is that it will reduce the support burden on me. It will help people to figure things out on their own, and it will then free up some time for me to go back and work on features and development. In terms of business model and monetizing support, it's a tricky one. I think the business model that I'm currently working with, which is selling plugins in the plugin store with annual renewal fees, is that the hope is that enough people buy the plugin and enough people know how to use the plugin and the support reduces over time so that the renewal costs and the license fees will support the cost of the support. But that's as far as I've gotten. And I would be interested to hear from Ollie how it's going with the support plans that Craft CMS offer, because I think they have the Pro and Premium plans. So I would be interested to hear how that's going, if it's kind of paying for support within Craft and Pixel Tonic itself.
Let me just mention something from my perspective on this, Ben. So let's say that I work at an agency and I use Sprig. I've adopted Sprig because it allows me to do cool stuff, and I'm going to start using that on all of my sites. So I want to use Sprig on all of my sites. It's in my vested interest that Sprig gets improved and updated, and it's supported, and it's around for a long time. So from that perspective, even though I might initially not like the idea of paying you for support or paying you for some part of it, the long game part of me would understand that I really actually want you to do well. Like the worst thing that could happen is you came out with this awesome free open source Sprig thing and I start using it everywhere and you get so burnt out on support that you just are done with it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So Ollie, how have the paid support plans worked out for you? And is this something that Ben could consider maybe doing?
Brandon presented this at .org last year in Canada. When we launched the paid support plan, a few months afterwards, they were covering my salary already. I think there is something to be said for paid support. For sure. It's like an insurance for some people. Right. You know, they're going to use your product. They're more than willing to pay. And we see it. At first, the question was, well, we do it for free at the moment. All of a sudden, we're going to say you can pay for it. Are people actually going to pay for it? And yes, they do. Of course they do, because there's nothing worse than being stuck and not being able to demand the help, in a sense, if you see what I mean. From the time you pay, you can be more direct. Demanding, I guess, is the word, you know. If you've not paid for something in terms of support with us, we send a ticket back saying we'll respond within the week. Mm-hmm. I think the paid plan introduces 12 hours. So the pro support plan gives you a 12 hours guaranteed response time, first response time, not resolution. And premium plan is 2 hours. For some project, it's critical for people to actually have that now. Mm-hmm. And they don't hesitate a second to actually buy it. And there's all sorts of people subscribing. There's some freelancers, just working on their own, to avoid wasting the time to look for things themselves, or that understand that it's just beyond them. Some problem are going to be beyond them. So they pay for support. And I mean, it seems to have worked well. I don't keep track of it personally, but I know it's worked well, and it carries on working well because we're employing more support staff now, and customers have been quite creative where the client who bought pro support, but instead of using it for emails, they asked if they could have a call once a month for an hour with me as nearly consultancy as such, So as they were moving along their project, we'd do a meeting monthly. They would prepare a list of questions and ask questions on that call. And they knew they had somebody from Pixel and Tonic. And if I didn't have the answer, then I could ask Brandon or Brad or Andres or anyone to have the actual answer and the final answer. Because
you're cutting into my support business. How dare you? My consulting business. What are you doing?
No, I think there's a fine line between the two. Paid support is close to consulting.
Yeah. No, and I think this is a really interesting thing to think about, Ben. So, for instance, I don't know if you folks know, but the people who originally created Redux have created something called Remix for React, which is sort of like a framework for building React apps or whatever. And they started charging for it. So it's $250 a year for an indie license, and it's $1,000 a year for a team license for this thing. Mm-hmm. So two things to note. One, you're paying for it, and it's not an insubstantial amount of money. And two, it's on a subscription basis, right? So it's yearly, and it's talking about you can use it, you get support, all that kind of stuff. And they said that in the first week of doing this, they had more money coming in than they had in the first 2 years on their GitHub sponsor stuff. So to me, this is kind of like the license enforcement for Craft and for plugins. It's money left on the table if you don't have some kind of a paywall for some of this stuff, because a lot of people are very happy to take the free stuff. And I think this applies to support as well. So if people are willing to pay for it, I would much rather that someone pays you, Ben, to do this stuff and that you're around and supporting this thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you make a very good point, and it's very reassuring to hear that it has gone so well for Craft, for Pixel and Tonic. I think I try to be careful of comparing the Craft community with React or even with the likes of Laravel or some JavaScript communities, because they're of a different scale completely.
I don't know. I mean, here's the only place I disagree is I keep on saying that we're in the support business. I think Pixel and Tonic is in the support business. And the reason I say that is Craft is not the end product, right? The end product is the thing they build with Craft. And they often need support to make that. I don't know. That's just my personal hang up though.
Yeah, I guess the question is how you provide the support. Like if you ask for, I don't know, I think the pro support plan for Craft CMS is $75 a month. Then you need a significant number of people paying that to be able to cover one person's or multiple people's full-time salary to handle support. Right. Mm-hmm. Whereas that's the other question I guess I have to you, Ollie, in a moment, is are people limited? So you talked about the response time, but is someone who's paying $75 a month, are they limited by how much support they receive? Or is it they're paying so now they have this privilege of getting all the support they could ever want? But before we go into that, maybe the other thing that I wanted to say is that I have been considering charging for maybe support, but also the creation of these learning resources, because learning resources, I think, are really helpful in helping, like not only giving people support, like helping them solve their problems, but helping them to become better developers and better at using their tools, which they're using day in, day out, but creating these learning resources like, screencasts and video recordings and demos and examples are all extremely time consuming. I have been considering how to do that, but I have some ideas for Sprig and I haven't settled on anything yet, but we shall see.
Well, that's a model that lots of people have taken, right? Our friend Ryan Ireland has got a whole business based around making videos of, showing people how to do stuff. And it's something that Adam Wathan and any number of other people have started little cottage businesses by creating a thing for free and then selling some kind of courseware or something around it. That's a thing that people do. Yeah.
The only thing I think, like I said before, I think we still need to consider the size of the community out
Yep.
there, and
Yep.
how many people are willing to pay and how much they're willing to pay. I think we probably need to price, like when there are fewer people in the community, you probably have to price a bit higher, because the chances of getting hundreds or thousands of subscriptions is probably a bit lower.
Well, here's the other thing, though, that I think is kind of, there's a tension, because when you're creating these learning resources, you're benefiting the people that are going to access them, certainly, but you're also benefiting yourself, because there's less support you're going to have to do, because you can point people at these learning resources and be like, here, like, here's everything that you need. So it's tough, it's there. Okay. So I guess there are 3 areas where you could potentially ask for income from this thing. So you could charge for the thing itself if you wanted to. So if you wanted to make Sprig a paid plugin, for instance, you could do that. And another thing you could potentially charge for, and if you wanted to, you could build the support into the price of the Sprig plugin, so you kind of would ballpark it and average it and do it that way. You could also charge for the videos or learning resources, whatever they are. And then finally, you can also charge for the actual support that you do, premium support. I'm not advocating you charge for all of these things, right? Trust me. Right. I'm not suggesting that you just try and milk something dry until it dies. Like, you don't want to do that.
At the moment, my feeling is that I would like to develop learning resources, like really advanced learning resources and high quality ones, and charge for that. At the moment, it doesn't quite sit right with me to charge for support. But I think I should actually put that into perspective, because by support, I mean like people are having issues or people are filing bugs. I want to be on that and I want to fix it and be there for people. However, there is this situation which happens every now and then where people will be blatantly asking me, how they should do their jobs, basically, how should they build this thing and
build this for me, Ben.
Yeah, basically. And very often that conversation kind of goes, well, I'd be happy to help you with this, but it will take more time. We'll have to schedule something in. And if you want, here's, my consulting rate or whatever. And it's kind of counterintuitive, but part of the time people just won't get back to me. There'll be no response. But another part of the time, people will be very happy to hear that and will jump on it. And it's almost as if they didn't know this was a possibility,
Right.
So it's like, if you really want support, then you can try and get it for free. But there always, I think, is the possibility to request consulting work just for a couple of hours to help you fix that issue. And that's possibly an issue, like a problem on my part, that I haven't communicated that well enough. Maybe.
And that's support, right? But here's the thing. I wouldn't segment these things, even though that's what I did just about 5 minutes ago, segmenting them. Because all of these things, if you boil it down to it, it's your time. Either your time is spent building the plugin, your time is spent making training resources, your time is spent doing support, your time is spent, one-on-one consulting. It's all your time, and you just kind of need to figure out where you want to get paid for that time. You know what I mean?
So I would love to hear from Ollie how those plans work out. Like, do you set limits for the amount of support you offer people, or how do you distinguish between those two support plans besides response time?
So the way it's done is in Zendesk, basically, there's an SLA functionality. So, we know which ticket is a premium and which is a pro one. In terms of limit of tickets, there isn't one. So people can literally write all the time as such and expect their answer. It doesn't happen. Most people are pretty good. We try to help in an educational manner. So, sending back the docs, there is an agreement. There are terms and conditions, to the support. It's developer to developer support, but we're not going to develop for people either. We do help as much as we can, and we go deep in sometimes, but it can't be on every ticket and it can't be on everything either. Education is a big part of that. Craft is a tricky one in comparison to, I was going to say, a plugin to some plugin, is that what you can do is so vast. This is a CMS that comes in empty. There is nothing in it as such, So every ticket, every project, is its own product as such. People build Craft and build something with Craft that we don't know of. So there's this communication aspect which we discussed. We need to understand every single project for people. And often people write in saying, that doesn't work and I can't do this. And it's like, well, slow down. I don't know your project yet. Explain a little bit. The pro support, to go back on that, I think the pro support, I don't know if it was a surprise, because if it was planned, the team is smart enough to think things through. If they decided to create paid support, they had thought about it as such. And I was surprised personally when I saw that people would pay for it. But I think it's a case of you don't know until you offer it. And you guys would probably be surprised also, if you offered paid support for your plugin, potentially people would buy it, because it is difficult when you're on the other side. The expectation for support is zero. We've all got our experience, whether it's your phone that's broken or anything in your life. When you call support with your bank or any, it's going to be long, it's going to be tedious, and you're not even sure you're going to get an answer. So to actually give the ability to people to say, well, I need some help and I've got the option to pay for that help, to have help guaranteed, I think it sells itself in a sense.
I would like to publicly thank telecommunication companies around the world for setting the bar so low.
It is. Often the reaction, people write in, our response time is phenomenal. We're very, very good. I won't give figures, but we're very good. We respond very quickly to things, pro or not. I shouldn't say that, sorry.
Uh-oh.
I shouldn't say that. Our response time are really good. Pro support comes first, pro and premium, sorry. But often people's reaction just to receive an email back is, oh, wow, you replied.
Right.
As you said, the expectations are so low. You're just sending an email in the e-file, hoping that some machine or something's going to, and all of a sudden you've got someone on the other side with a smiley face and, willing to help and stuff. It's a big deal. And I think it's a business in itself. There's scope for it. We've got a lovely community as well. So you're not going to get attacked.
What I'm finding that, which is related, and maybe Ben and yourself, Ollie, can relate to this. I don't know, but it's related to not enough information being sent in with support tickets, which is that as the plugins that I have get more and more mature, the problems that people run into get more and more obscure and edge case.
Yeah.
To where I need so much context to even be able to figure it out, right? Because my mantra is, if I can reproduce it, I can fix it, right? So the biggest hurdle for me is being able to reproduce stuff. But as these things get more and more mature, the problems I run into are so obscure that I find myself having to jump on, for instance, screen shares more often, because it just would take so long to get the exact environment or the exact information that I need in order to be able to replicate it. Have either of you run into that at all?
Yes. I do, and I do the same thing. So it's our discretion, but if I feel that something is too complicated or communication again, some people just don't know how to explain things well, and you can't blame someone for that. So I have done just, let's jump on a call and we do it face to face.
I think it's just easier sometimes. Have you run into that at all, Ben, where the context that you need is getting more and more?
Yeah, sometimes asynchronous communication doesn't cut it, and I say, let's chat or let's have a call, because otherwise we're just going to be going back and forth on all day, and I'm going to get frustrated, you're going to get frustrated. So absolutely. This also makes me think of the craft. There's like craft support in the control panel dashboard, right? And as far as I remember, does that send logs or something about your craft installation to Craft CMS? So
yes, it does.
Is that a common feature? Because that seems like it might be incredibly useful if you can get like context about the person's craft version, PHP version, what plugins they're running, that kind of thing.
We get a fair amount coming via the widget, but the majority is still just email. Yeah.
I'm telling you, Ben, if you offered some kind of a premium support, I would buy it just so I could hear your sultry voice, once a month. I would use up my hour or two, whatever I would need, What about you, Patrick? Would you be phoning him up
at night, New York time, and just tell me a bedtime story?
Yeah, come on, Ben. Talk to me a little bit here.
The concept is super reassuring. You must have been in that position. You're all developers, you've all made websites or products or anything. When you're stuck, to know that you can call on someone, it's invaluable.
Yeah. And I'm sure we all have this kind of love-hate relationship with support, because it does feel really good to be able to help somebody and help them figure out their problem. And it's a very gratifying thing to do. It's just that sometimes it's too much, and we're developers at heart, and we want to build stuff. And of course, support is part of that, but it's not just that. And one thing, Ollie, I know you're not on Twitter and Discord, but I just want to call this out because I've seen, especially lately, but probably all the time, I see these tweets about people saying how amazing the Craft CMS support is, and people even calling you out by name, Ollie. So you guys must be doing something well over there.
There was something yesterday. It's the first time, to be honest, because I'm not on social media myself. I guess people can't find me to start with, and I don't go after that. I check Craft's Twitter, so Craft CMS, regularly, and from there, there's always Brad and Brandon on the side. So I looked at theirs every now and then, but that's it really. Yesterday, I helped somebody, and he decided to tweet about it, and all of a sudden there was a lot of people saying, "Yeah, Ollie," and that was quite touching. It's quite rewarding. But I found the reward without that.
Were they chanting "Ollie, Ollie, Ollie, oi, oi, oi"?
Oi, oi.
They weren't Australian. They were English, I believe. I think, but yeah, and
it was very touching. I must admit, to get some feedback, because I get some within the team, of course, and everybody's very happy with my work, and I feel it myself. When I perform and when I don't, I know when I'm good and when I'm not.
And he was worried you were going to come out here and out him on all of his dumb support requests. But I agree with you. That's not the way it works, because we really do enjoy helping people, and it really is rewarding. The only part of support that I find that I just really do not enjoy is the nonsense that I have to do in order to get enough information, all the information that I need in order to be able to help them. Like, I want to help them. I enjoy helping people, but that information gathering part of it and being able and having to like pull all of that out just so I can solve the problem, that I find really tedious sometimes.
Well, here's an idea, Andrew. I wonder if you could build a widget into your plugins that if somebody's having an issue and you're already at this stage where you need more information, they can click a little button that says send a support request with all of the context of my craft site.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I need again, what I was saying is a lot of these problems are getting more and more obscure. Like people are using these crazy load balancer headless setups, and it happens. It's just so obscure that I don't even know, like the boilerplate information that I could get from something like that. It might be helpful, but usually not,
It's only part of the story, right?
Yeah. And you need like a Stripe form hooked up with that too.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly.
You can buy 1 hour to start, and we'll see where it goes from there.
If I remember well, Josh used to do that for FeedMe. So I think the plugin had a widget, and he would send the feeds table to him directly and some context as such, so that the first ticket, the incoming ticket, could already be worked on. Yeah. As opposed to just you'd have to respond just to ask information straight away.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I enjoy building tools that other people use to then build their stuff. But I don't, and I enjoy doing the support, and I enjoy helping them to do this stuff. I just really don't enjoy everything that I need to do when I need to reproduce a problem. So I am probably more inclined than most people to just jump on a video call with somebody, because I have found that I can just get to the bottom of what I need so much quicker than, the dozen or so back and forth replies on GitHub or something like that.
That's not very scalable, though. You can't be on a call with everybody all the time.
It's not. Yeah, that's the problem. It's not.
Yeah. Sometimes the first response is very useful, especially when you don't have enough information. I'm sure you don't mean this, Andrew, but before getting on a call, I would always send back a response with, "Okay, have you checked this and this, and what are you on the latest version of the plugin?" Because you're giving, like Ollie said, people are not really in their normal. They're not, in their senses. They're kind of maybe in a panic or something, and you're just giving them the time to calm down, think about the problem, tackle it. Maybe check that they've updated the plugin, and maybe giving them some ideas of what they could do to fix it. But yeah, at some stage, maybe you do need to get on a call. But as Ollie says, that doesn't scale well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
This is a technique, I do it from time to time. You receive an email with a problem, you offer some suggestion or some stuff, and then you receive another quick response. Yeah, but it's not working. And you just let it sit for just 30 or 40 minutes. And then the next email is, I've worked it out.
Yeah, that's also known as the rubber duck support scheme. Right?
That happens a lot. Yeah. That happens a lot, and I think it's valuable for the person on the other side. And I think if it can be monetized, it should be. It should be. I'm not one for free things.
So, Ollie, I don't want to get you in trouble, right? But I do, when I used to run a software company, one of the things that I allowed my support staff to do, no questions asked, desk, they could fire one customer a month. I left it totally up to their discretion. And I said, hey, look, I trust you. I know that sometimes you got to put up with crap that you shouldn't have to put up with. You don't have to ask me. Just do it if you want to do it. Have you ever run into situations like that where someone is just being abusive and you're just like, I gotta step back from this?
Abusive, never. It gets above my head sometimes, so I don't have the skills as such. So I need to call on Brad, for example, or something. And because I've got this tendency of wanting to help and being kind, sometimes I can feel when I'm just getting abused a little bit. Not verbally or anything, but people are just not making the effort anymore.
Yeah, taken advantage of. Yeah.
That's it. And in those situations, I would ask Brad or Brandon for help on those tickets, because I wouldn't know how to say it. I just wouldn't know how to say it myself. I find it very hard to not help. It is, as I said when we started, it's something I chose to do. It's not a job I fell into by accident or whatever. This is actually deep in me to want to help. So I would carry on, but sometimes it's just, I can see when it's not sensible anymore, when it's not logical. And in that case, I'm sure I would have the authority to do it. Brad and Brandon must trust me to leave me. Well, I'm sort of front line on things, they don't check on my work or anything. So I'm sure if they would trust my judgment on something like that, but I wouldn't have it in me to do it. There is no one I would want to sack as a customer as such.
Yeah, no, I get it. I was just curious because, even though I gave them that power, I think it happened like maybe once or twice in a decade. It was a very rare thing, but I think they appreciated that. I'm just like, look, man, I don't expect you to be subjected to any kind of nonsense. So, here's the power to do it. But
most people are nice. Most people are very nice people writing. Well, we know our community. There's a vast amount of people using Craft which are not part of what we call the community, that you've never seen on Stack Exchange, never seen on Discord or whatever. So there's this silent crowd that also exists, but most people are kind. And as I said, surprised by the fact that we're here to help. Often you send an email for support and you never hear it. Try and email Google support and see what you get.
Yeah, no, and I think that comes from the top, right? So they say that culture comes from leadership, and I'm being really, really nice to Brandon, but I think he sets an example that I think the community reflects that to some extent. So for sure. That about wraps it up for another episode of the devMode.fm podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure to subscribe, tell a friend, drop us a review. We really appreciate it. Tell Patrick to make this shorter.
Someday
for the devMode.fm podcast. I'm Andrew Welch.
I'm Patrick Harrington.
And thank you, Ben Croker, for coming on.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And thank you, Ali Ban.
Pleasure.
Could hear it, but in the middle of that episode, like a half a dozen times, my son kept on like FaceTiming me. Did the audio come across at all?
I didn't hear it at all.
Oh, thank God. It was so loud. It like blew my ears off, and I'm hitting like decline. I'm like, stop. You're driving me crazy.
Just like you do with support requests, right?
Oh, no. Let me tell you. The support requests from the kids are something else.
Get them to